first date?
That's what I love about these high school girls, man. I get older, they stay the same age.
Honey!
What?
Where's my super suit?
Assemble.
What's up, YouTube? This is your friendly neighborhood movie nerd, back to give you guys everything that's going on in the world of movies and TV, and we're back with part 2 of my 3 top 10 list, or in this case, my top 41, or in this case, my bottom 41, or whatever the hell I'm gonna call this. I really don't know yet. But so, we're continuing, and this time we're gonna do the worst of 2019, and thank God there weren't as many outwardly bad movies this year. We got back to, I'm not gonna say quite the generic bad, but there were definitely some interesting ones, let's say, on the list. So you guys know I don't like to do dishonorable mentions at all because I hate talking about bad movies in general. So let's just skip to it and let's just get through this painful monstrosity of these painful monstrosities that we have to call movies.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Dunbar.
Starting off at number 10, we have The Fanatic, directed by Fred Durst of Limp Bizkit fame, which stars John Travolta in his continuing quest to embarrass himself as Moose, a fanboy who wants to meet his horror icon Hunter Dunbar and goes a little bit too far when it comes to just getting a photo.
Fan! I'm a #1 fan.
Now, this movie almost takes the Room Award for being almost so bad it's entertaining. Or I think Gotti was the movie that got that last year, but I was not going out of my way to watch that movie last year. Sorry, E. This movie, though, kind of did look up my alley. And I will say that there was probably just enough, you know, kind of cult stuff to love here.
You can't just come to my private residence looking for me. Listen, pal, I don't know how you found me, but I don't ever want to see you in this neighborhood again.
Of course, it's all anchored in Travolta's performance or whatever you want to call it. It's just so many fascinating things to discuss. The fact that he's friends with a teenager, the fact that he keeps stalking Hunter, and like the movie is just repetitive for the sake of being repetitive when it actually could have something to say about the statement of fan relations in, you know, with celebrities in Hollywood and how that's and what that's become with the internet now. But then you just have Devon Sawa playing Hunter, who besides being an asshole, just turns out to be a kind of a psychopath by the end. And ultimately, this movie's big problem is that it has no idea what it wants to do or say. It just kind of comes off as being this utterly like confusing mess. So just to give this movie a shout out, like The Fanatic makes this list, because oh man, this was just one of those ones that was fun to watch.
It could have happened to anybody.
Number 9 is one that will surprise one person I know who's watching this video, probably won't surprise some others. That would be The Dirt, the Motley Crue biopic, directed by the guy who did Jackass, that came directly to Netflix. This was one of the Netflix movies that I saw the trailer for it and I'm like, great, of course. It's following right up after Bohemian Rhapsody, which already left a bad taste on my mouth with music biopics, and I'm like, Motley Crue doesn't deserve this. Like that's the thing that I need to set as a precedent before I go into it. I don't shit on all these music biopics that have come out in the last year because I want to and because I have any disrespect for the people that it's about. I feel like people should have enough common sense to know that, but this is the internet we're talking about, so, you know, kind of common sense goes out the fucking window there. But considering the amount of idiots who just easily bought into Bohemian Rhapsody and Rocket Man and all of those other people, I didn't expect them to have the same amount of love and affection for Motley Crue, but even still, like, Motley Crue should be easy to do. Again, they're just a bunch of hard partying crazy people who ended up like fucking up their bodies but still made some incredible songs, and somehow they even managed to fuck this up. And I feel really bad because they do have a decent batch of actors, but this movie is all over the place. It speeds by when it's not being so slow that like you wish that the sped up moments would come.
Show. I'm talking like a stadium show in the clubs.
What I will say is that the actors, the 4 guys that they get doing the Motley Crue guys, really do a solid job here in terms of portraying them. Like, especially the moment with the Daniel Weber character. I can never remember which one is which. It's Tommy, Mick, Nikki, and the 4th guy, I can't remember his name, but the Daniel Weber guy, when he's looking at and watching his daughter die, like that scene was actually really gut-wrenching. But the rest of this movie, it was just too fast. I couldn't enjoy it. I still had too much of Bohemian. It reminded me too much of Bohemian Rhapsody in terms of just being generic when it shouldn't have. Everything around it was just like either uninspired or just crude. And I get it. It's Motley Crue. It's supposed to be, but I don't know. This shouldn't feel like a made-for-TV movie. This should be like on the big screen, and this felt like it was missing something. So.
Critique is so limiting and emotionally draining.
Number 8 is Velvet Buzzsaw, which is another Netflix movie. This is basically what happens when you try to. I feel like this is what I would expect when the guys who did Disaster Movie and Epic Movie tried to do a David Cronenberg ripoff. The only problem is this is directed by the guy and written by the guy who did Nightcrawler, so it actually does have a good production value. The problem is that this movie is just a complete sloppy mess.
Never should have quit drinking.
And then first off, besides the fact that it's the killers here are literally art. Like, and the movie is trying to make some half-baked, half-cooked statement about, like, critics and like, how the overall underlying embitterment that artists have towards critics, but,
No originality. No courage.
just, and then when this movie actually shows the art killing people, it just comes off as hilarious. Like, I was laughing more in this movie. Like, when Toni Collette gets her fucking arm bit off with a giant silver ball, I was just laughing my ass off. And this was probably the first year where I had just as many Netflix movies that I enjoyed as much as that I didn't like. And this movie was one that had a very specific mission and just completely missed the mark and failed. It was just hilarious to watch. But yeah, bad movie, Velvet Buzzsaw. Now, I will say that my first 3 entries on this list were, like, pretty entertaining but again, from, like, a so bad they're good, but it mostly just, like, kind of, like, me trying to give credit just so that I don't have to, like, justify the fact that I actually watched those. But my number 7 is just not a case at all. This was a movie that I watched, and the third act almost redeemed it, but the rest of it just came off as silly, nonsensical, boring CW trash. That's the remake of Black Christmas. I've seen better statement movies. I've seen better, more accurate college movies, but clearly this movie was never setting out to be that.
Haven't gotten home yet. If I were missing, I'd want you to unleash the bloodhounds and track me down.
Again, very obvious caricatures. This one kind of more so falls into the realm of, like, generic studio movie. But again, that ending almost made it work. Almost. It just needed this little extra layer of schlock and cheese in order to really make this movie stick and almost be that, but it just couldn't quite hit the mark. And so that is unfortunately why Black Christmas only makes number 7.
You messed with the wrong sisters.
Number 6 is Alita Battle Angel. I don't know why people were making excuses for this movie. Thank God this got moved to January where it fucking belonged. I almost didn't watch this if not for my friend really wanted to watch it, and I watched it. I'm like, when I'm not bored, I'm trying to focus on something to like, you know, like the CG, I guess, is good. But I gotta say, for a movie that was touted as being like the next big thing in terms of James Cameron's next big visual display before, you know, showing off some early new previs that he's working on, but that he will eventually incorporate into the Avatar sequels, yeah, I didn't really like it. If anything, I found it distracting. Again, another movie that whitewashes white people supposed to be playing Asian characters, I think. Again, another just batch of actors that is wasted. Why Christoph Waltz can't seem to get good work outside of Tarantino movies, I have no idea. But he continues to try, so credit where credit is due. Another thing, everyone was crediting Rose Salazar as being good in this, and I gotta say there was nothing interesting about her performance because again, it's one of those things where she's supposed to play this innocent teenage girl caricature that you've seen a million times before, and there's nothing convincing or compelling about her performance because she just feels and looks like a 30-year-old trying to play like a teenager, and it's just completely laughable, you know, and the CG bug eyes aside, you know, and yeah, it was ultimately a waste of time, and it was sad because I felt like this could have gone somewhere, I guess, but I just didn't care.
It's amazing to meet you.
All right, number 5, returning to the realm of just straight up bad, not quite so bad that it's good, not quite generic studio bad, just bad, and that is, of course, The return of the Shamalama Ding Dong. I don't care. It's glad.
I specialize in those individuals who believe they are superheroes.
And let me tell you something. He almost had me fooled. He almost had me fooled with Split. But then I remembered after I watched it, because I watched this movie and I'm like, what the fuck happened? Like, Unbreakable. And then he pulls off Split somehow, which I was ready to write off by the end. And then the twist comes in and I'm like, mind blown. I had Split in my honorable mentions for 2017. And I watched this movie and I was like, what the fuck happened? And then I remembered. I'm like, oh wait, that's right. Shyamalan already had this script written 20 years ago when he made Unbreakable.
Convinced yourselves you have extraordinary gifts like something out of a comic book.
And then he tries to make this faux dumb fucking movie about like the statement of superheroes and society's perceivable of them and whether they're actually real or whether they're all just a figment of I'm like, and then by the end I'm just like, shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up. And it really sucks because if anything, this movie, I think, was more insulting to its characters, the three awesome, badass characters that it had built up, that, of course, being James McAvoy's The Horde, Bruce Willis's The Overseer, and Samuel L. Jackson's Mr. Glass. Poor Samuel L. Jackson was, of course, given nothing to do. Bruce Willis, I actually liked him in this movie. I know everyone kind of shat on him, but this was, like, the first time that I felt like I was actually watching him, like, try again. And, of course, James McAvoy continuing to act his ass off. And, yeah, just given really poor material. The side characters are completely pointless. The world is just boring to watch. It's once again Shyamalan's completely shallowed out, colorless, awful looking world, and he tries to do this thing where he tries to silhouette each of the characters against their individual color palettes, but the coloring is so bland and generic that I can barely tell. And the fucking twist, it's like, okay, so besides the fact that you're set up, which is fascinating, I will give it, this idea of them being trapped in the psycho institute, the psychological institution where the psychologists are trying to convince them that they're not actually superheroes, that it really is just a figment of their imagination, of their mental illness. But then the secret organization that she's a part of is just going to kill them anyways. So if the whole point of these superpowered beings are really a threat, just kill them anyways, Again, it's kind of breaking down the logic where he tries to be subversive about the genre, but then he just becomes the genre. It's the Baywatch syndrome all over again. So yeah, this movie was fucking unbelievably stupid, waste of time. If anything, it's more pissed because you had the amazing setup from Split and Unbreakable, and this is where it leads. So yeah, fuck off, Shyamalan.
Last name. Glass.
Number 4, another Netflix movie. Goddamn, I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot here. But it's another one that was almost so bad that it was good and entertaining, which is Jonas Ackerland's first effort this year. Yeah, that's right, that guy directed 2 movies this year. Polar, starring Mads Mikkelsen, which features one half, Mads Mikkelsen just being lonely in the snow, kind of pulling a Liam Neeson, the typical isolated old man effort who's secretly a badass that we've seen a million times before. And the other half is just this really, really confusing, all over the place total menagerie of just these weirdo batch of assassins that are just going around because apparently it costs too much to keep them alive so they can collect, but it's worth more to kill them and collect the insurance money?
If a former agent dies after retirement, their $8 million goes back to the company.
But if you kill them, you're already risking it because if one of them survives, they can come over and take over your entire organization. And again, I feel like the overall stupidity of this movie is completely summed up with Matt Lucas's performance. Of course, like easily one of the worst performances I've seen so far this year. And Mads Mikkelsen almost saves it purely for the fact that of one of the greatest sex followed by a killing scenes that I think I've ever seen in the movie, because for some reason these assassins have a hot chick with them that is purely there to fuck their targets and lull them into submission before they move in and kill them. But then she's a pointless assassin on her own. Like, she literally can't do anything. Like, the way that Mads Mikkelsen dispatches her is almost comical with how pathetically bad she is. So, but hey, at the very least, he got a good lay out of it. I guess the action was good when it wasn't like so unrealistic to the point that I'm like, what? Why didn't he just do this in the first place? And yeah, so it's another movie that takes place in the snow. We had a decent amount of movies this year that were really bad movies that took place in the snow. And I think he did another movie this year that was in the snow. What is it with Mads Mikkelsen and wanting to do movies in the snow? So yeah, that's Polar. I'm done talking about this.
Dude, I am tripping right now. I feel like I've totally lived through this day already.
Deja vu?
Yes.
The day reset when you died, right?
Yeah.
My number 3, Happy Death Day to You. I saw this at the beginning of the year. My thoughts on it have not changed. For the first movie that actually pleasantly surprised me, this movie was everything that I expected it to be. Just more stupid, silly, nonsensical, dumb 30-year-olds pretending to be teenagers. There were certain sections of this movie that felt like I was watching a Disney Channel movie. And freaking, again, the linchpin that I've been saying since I saw this movie. Fucking, you expect me to believe that college students are capable of inventing a time machine in 2019? Like, get the fuck out of here, movie. Get the fuck out of here. There's the door. All right, number 2 is Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, and I am beyond sick of talking about Disney and Star Wars and everything that's happened there, but all I'm going to say is that just as a movie, it's a very poorly made movie, very rushed, very chaotic. I don't have a second's minute to breathe with these characters before we just get rushed on to the next action sequence. The movie looks really visually ugly. Again, it's one thing when you have nonsensical plot elements, but when you don't even try to back them up with any sort of logic, you know, Palpatine's back. Great. How? No explanation. Finn, oh, I have something to tell you, Rey. What? Nothing. Literally nothing. Like, this movie is, like, there's setup and payoff, and I get that, I understand all the problems with Disney that we had. There was no plan. They put it on the individual filmmakers, but Jesus fucking Christ, was JJ trying to troll the audiences here? But, like, was he aware of the fact that they knew that they weren't gonna get shit? And so, like, I was so confused here because, like, there were certain moments in this movie that felt like it was pointing a finger at The Last Jedi, which we all knew, like, JJ hated, but then there's something he borrows from The Last Jedi. Like, you still have the 4 Skype calls, you still have the fucking horses, like, Rose is still a character, even though she's completely pushed to the side. I feel bad for these actors, I feel bad for the universe of Star Wars, because it did not deserve this at all, and ultimately, at the end of the day, what did this say about Star Wars? You know, what did this actually have to say about that we didn't get from the ending of Return of the Jedi, you know? Because now the way that I'm seeing it is that we got 2 kind of interesting movies that were almost kind of like odes to the original Star Wars movies, but in terms of like an actual fucking continuation, like, leave this fucking universe, this sect of Star Wars universe alone, you know? Let that movie get remade in, you know, another 20 years or so. And fucking, let me tell you something, is that after hearing Robert Meyer Burnett read Colin Trevorrow and Derek Connolly's script that was released online, I can't fucking believe I'm saying this. I would have rather Colin Trevorrow directed this movie. Yep, I said it. I would have rather Colin Trevorrow directed Episode 9. And my number 1 worst movie of the year, I almost feel bad putting this movie here, mostly because I saw this with my dad, and I had a really bad habit of every single movie that I saw with my dad in theaters this year was just the worst, and Godzilla King of the Monsters got knocked off just by a hair, because as much fun as those, because again, Godzilla, it was the same thing of kind of where with Kong Skull Island, but I think Kong Skull Island had a little bit of an advantage where the monster action sequence just made up for the bullshit human drama, but that's not my number 1, because my number 1 is, of course, Rambo: Last Blood. And the thing about it is that I never really cared about the Rambo franchise. Again, it was the whole thing of where the first one was only interesting because it wasn't an action movie, and then the other sequels just became action movies, and they were dumb fun. I know the 4th one was super violent, so a lot of people like this, but this movie, besides just being horrifically depressing, like almost to a fault, like to the point where it's like, it's depressing for no reason, but it's like, it's really confusingly depressing. Almost like when I'm watching this poor girl die of like heroin overdose in Rambo's arms, I'm almost laughing because of how bad the acting is. The film is so blandly shot. Sylvester Stallone, like, I don't know why he still likes doing that. I'm just convinced that Stallone has lost his goddamn mind, and he just, like, likes filming movies about him killing random foreigners. And of course I don't even need to talk about the bad guys because we know how comical and cartoony they are. Even if I got, like, a little bit of joy from watching him slice and dice those guys, but almost to a point where it was, like, vicious, to a point of, like, we're showing Rambo's true serial killer nature, which is basically what the character has become at this point. He's literally a serial killer. Not at all what what the author was originally intended, but oh man. But the reason why it's number 1 is because this was probably the movie that was just the most painful to sit through. Like, this is the type of movie that I would have watched 10 years ago, but now I should have known better than to watch it, and I watched it anyway, and I got exactly what I deserved. And yeah, Rambo: Last Blood. Oh my god, that shit fucking sucks. So that was my top 10 worst of 2019. Ugh, that just depressed me just talking about those movies and having to acknowledge that they existed. But I hope it was entertaining for you guys at least, which of course at the end of the day is what this is all about. You guys know what to do. Follow me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter. That's not true. I deleted my Twitter. Ha! Joke's on you guys. Subscribe to my Instagram, all movie nerd reviews, and of course the podcast channel at Talking TV Podcast. And also be sure to subscribe, you know, if you still feel like doing that, you know, that sort of thing. Bye-bye.